Welcome back to CEO Money. It's Ed Baxter sitting in for Michael Yorba, who's vacationing in Europe right now. Hopefully snow has stopped. Joining us right now is Joe Ciccolo, president and founder of BitAML. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for having me.
Thanks for joining us, Joe. The interesting about the anti-money laundering thing is that I was a securities principal for most of my adult career, so obviously we spend a tremendous amount of time in our continuing ed looking over things about money laundering, because obviously people look to launder money through the securities world and also the insurance world. But looking at from where your standpoint is in the crypto world, one, tell us how you decided to do this, how you got involved, and I guess a little bit about your background. Two, how do you evolve to this particular level of AML activity when it comes to the crypto world?
Sure. Well, my background has always been in risk management. Spent over a decade in bank compliance, which may be a decade too long, I don't know, but some great experience there, mostly in AML or anti-money laundering leadership positions. And over the years, I got to see some of the transformations going on with banking and with all the different banking types of applications. And so first it was fintech, and then there was this innovation of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, and I began to get very interested about the promise that it had for the future and some of the potential that it could change in some way how we view and how we interact with financial services, or for that matter, how we interact with our own money. And so I began a period of self-discovery, you might say, where I began to consume lots of information about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, and ultimately felt that I could bring my talents from traditional banking and help out this sort of nascent sector of financial services, where there are a lot of great ideas, and maybe not necessarily a lot of compliance-related focus. And so I had an opportunity to bring my talents and get to know and help so many intelligent folks that are just doing some amazing work on this new technology. I'm so glad I made that transition.
That would be understanding. I'm glad you made it too, to tell you the truth, because I think there are a lot of people out there that need someone to kind of guide them to recognize the things that can go wrong when you start raising money, especially when you start raising money in what looks like the Wild Wild West. I mean, right now, what and who do you expect to be regulated as far as the cryptocurrency world is concerned?
Sure. Well, I think the thought that the cryptocurrency space is not regulated is unfortunately a bit of a myth. So there are a lot of regulatory agencies involved in regulating cryptocurrency.
Right.
And, I stress that it's very early in that process. So I think more concern should be placed on what the interpretation of these regulators are going to have over time. So they've already planted their flag. They're on the scene, and they're constantly reviewing new businesses that are entering the space, engaging the industry, which is always a plus. And I think it's just a matter of time before they sort of refine their approach. There's sort of never really going to be a universal Bitcoin or cryptocurrency law. They're simply going to apply existing regulations and existing case law. And to that point, just for an example, SEC securities laws date back to the 1930s. I wasn't there at the time, but I hazard to guess that no one was really planning for an ICO or some type of cryptocurrency related securities vehicle way back then. So we have to adjust with the times, and the regulators are certainly no different. And I think they're still doing their due diligence and really wrapping their head around this industry and proceeding slowly. That doesn't mean they're not proceeding. These things just take a little time, and we're slowly starting to see the regulators become more proactive and engaging folks like myself on the compliance side, and also engaging the wider industry, which I think is very helpful.
It looks like the majority of it is it has to deal with the Howey test in itself. So thinking about that, what are some of the popular business models that you see in the crypto space?
Sure. Well, I think there's so many different business models. We can probably just generalize a few of the more popular ones. At least on the retail level, the cryptocurrency ATMs or kiosks seem to be popping up all over the place. I think we've passed more than the 1,000 benchmark here in the U.S., and we're certainly leading the world in terms of our number of kiosks. So that's a great way for folks to get involved and maybe do a cash purchase in a smaller denomination just to get their feet wet, as it were. We're also seeing other business models of trading activities, and I say trading, I mean peer-to-peer type of trading through third-party platforms is very popular. Individuals are, in a sense, some form of day trading is what they're engaging in,
right,
with different cryptocurrencies, seeking the arbitrage between the different exchanges and even different cryptos. So those are more popular on the retail side. I think on the sort of financial 2.0, if you will, we're seeing a little bit more popularity getting into hedge funds and other areas of investment, IRAs and in different vehicles in which people can have exposure to crypto that maybe it's not a direct exposure, such as a one-to-one transaction or going through an exchange like a Coinbase, but really having some exposure to that in their overall investment portfolio.
One thing that's interesting, about you, sorry for talking over you, but you occupy a very unique space as far as I'm concerned, and that is coming from the banking side and fintech side to moving to the crypto side. When you think about the quote-unquote a potential threat that banks look at when it comes to peer-to-peer activity, what do you see as the way that those organizations or companies that are involved in it will figure out a way to be compliant when it comes to the movement of money on a global basis in, say, a decentralized world? I mean, I know it's kind of a weird question, but because you've seen both sides of it, I think you'd be an expert to kind of give us some ideas on that.
Sure. I think we are going to see a transformation. I think the banks that are have their finger on the pulse and are interested in moving forward and changing with the times, they're going to be successful for the most part. And I think some of the banks that continue to take an antagonist viewpoint of cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and even the underlying technology are most likely going to be left behind. And so it's a matter of adapting not just your business model, but also adapting and having a more fluid compliance approach. And unfortunately, we've seen a lot of banks that have, in my opinion, taken the easy way out by simply saying, well, we're not prepared to bank crypto companies, or, we don't see any interest or any value in the space. And rather than sort of embrace these innovators, they've gone out of their way to make them feel uncomfortable, whether it's denying them the opportunity for a bank account or just simply not taking the opportunity to learn from other people in the space that are maybe doing something that's different and view it more as a learning opportunity than a threat. Hopefully that will change. But we're still seeing that sort of animosity between the two sides.
Yeah, and speaking of interesting use of words or animosity, you would think that any institution that had the ability to be a part of a forward-thinking technology that changes the dynamics. I know there's, $171 trillion or so dollars in banks around the world, and they're worried about their business model. But if you're worried about it, why wouldn't you embrace this and figure out ways to make it work for you in lieu of just battling against it? We have about a minute or so left, so I'll let you kind of take us out on that one.
Sure. The answer sort of eludes me. I don't know why the banks aren't taking a more proactive approach to use this as a learning opportunity. And there are clearly exceptions. I think that USAA has done a great job. Not only do they provide needed financial resources for those that have served in the armed forces, but they're very much ahead of the curve when it comes to offering unique and innovative banking and other solutions. And their involvement in the space as a VC investor and a champion for cryptocurrency is a good example, and I'm hoping that others will follow that. And we've seen Fidelity Investments and
they're definitely into it. By the way, I started my career as a trader at Fidelity.
Oh, excellent!
That was 1,000 years ago.
I grew up in Massachusetts, so I'm well aware of Fidelity Investment and their impact and their positive impact on the financial services space in the community.
Joe, we got to kind of cut it off there. Give us some ideas. How do people contact BitAML if they want to talk to Joe Ciccolo?
Oh, fantastic. Yes, folks can reach me through my email address. It's joe@bitaml.com, joe@bitaml.com, or otherwise just check out the blog section on our website. Plenty of great articles and pieces we've contributed over the past few years. So I'm happy to answer folks' questions and be delighted to hear from some of your listeners.
Joe, perfect. Thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate the time you've given me, and also I look forward to speaking to you again in a much more in-depth manner, so we'll have a little bit more time next time. So thank you very much for joining us. That was Joe Ciccolo, founder and president of BitAML. Thank you for joining us again today on CEO Money. Please look at our archives, check our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. This last segment was brought to you by our title sponsor, Tycon Partners. We'll be back tomorrow with more great content.